Okay, I'm here with my buddy Stanley. That just looked good, I guess. Remember, anytime you give a treat, this is his roadmap to success. Anytime you give a treat, the treat should go in the dog's mouth first, and they should hear the command word immediately after. That kind of activates their pleasure receptors and eventually creates enough of a positive association. The command word almost equals getting a treat. Not quite, but close. All right, he is basically a puppy. He barked at me a lot when I first got here. So one of the things I'd like the guardians to do is arrange for people to come over to meet him. Friends, not strangers. Now, when people go to pet him, what I want them to do is go like this. See how he kind of, well, but now he's engaging. So when I first came over, when I did like, he would duck or turn back away or turn his head. That's his way of saying, I don't want you to pet me. So a lot of dogs learn to be reactive because people just reach over and the dog ducks its head and they pet anyways. Kind of like that, see that head duck right there? We pet him anyways because we think what I'm doing is a positive thing. But if there's a girl that doesn't want me to touch her, just because I think what I'm doing is a positive thing doesn't mean it's appropriate for me to do that. You can turn that off, I think is what he's asking for. This is really just for you, so it's not high.
Oh, okay.
Value,
Making
but that's
sure.
okay. And so, again, just like the girl, it's appropriate for her to say she doesn't want me to touch her. It's appropriate for the dog to say who can or cannot touch me. Now, for you guys, it's different. You're his guardians, and he loves you and trusts you. But a lot of dogs learn to be reactive because the first time that somebody reaches for them and they don't want to be touched and they bark at him, the person steps back. The dog's like, Eureka, this is how I ask people to stay away. So now what we want to do is teach him, no, all you got to do is turn your head to the side or back away, and the person stops. They're listening to you. So you don't have to take to that next level. If your dog ever growls, you should never correct a dog or punish a dog for growling. That is the antithesis of aggression. A lot of dogs that have been punished for that, that's fine. I won't warn, I will just go straight to a bite. We like the warning. And now I remember if he's reactive, the best thing we can do is increase the distance from him to whatever it is he's reacting to. Sometimes you have to move around a truck or around something that blocks his vision. I went over a focus exercise. If I've forgotten to put it on this write-up, message me and I'll include a link to it. But you can always go to Doggone Problems, click on dog.com, click on dog training tips, and search in focus. And there'll be a whole bunch of videos where I explain it in detail. Make sure you get to that one within about 7 days inside, 2 days outside, and within about 9 days you're practicing it on the walks. Okay, so because he's a little bit of a higher energy dog, well, the other thing while we're talking about that, I'd like you to go through your phones, look through for people that haven't met him or you haven't seen for a while that are friends that will listen to you. Not all of our friends will listen to us. So if you tell the person, hey, reach your hand and stop, and that person's going to pet him anyways, then don't get that person to come over. Now let the person know, because again, we have social pressure when we have people come into our house. We're the host. We have to make sure they're having a good time. So the dog is kind of a secondary priority. Well, the person comes over, hey, you haven't seen us for a while. Our dog's a little bit nervous around people he hasn't met before, so we need to practice with this dog psychologist guy gave us this weird story. But anyway, so when you come over, can you help us out? I'll buy you a 6-pack of IPA, we'll play some video games or watch the game or whatever it is. And so when you have them come over, have them text you. Now, before you do this, exercise him. Do the laser, take him to the park, play fetch, go for a walk, run around in your yard or whatever it is. Just make sure after exercise he has at least 10 minutes to recover. He should not be dry panting. No, we won't wait for him to stop doing that before the guest arrives. So when the guest arrives, have them call ahead of time, and maybe you leave a little Ziploc bag of, maybe you use this stuff on what is this, the Stewart, I call it crack, Pro Treat, Stewart Pro Treat, original freeze-dried training treats. These are beef freeze-dried beef treats. So basically what you do is the guest would go to your fence and just put like about maybe every 12 inches for about 5 or 6 treats. Hey buddy. After you get to that point, then you're going to go maybe to about a foot or about 3 feet between 2 feet between treats, 3 feet, and you're going to make a trail towards, and they should be probably on that side, on the grassy side of your front house, and then they should be sitting down, like in the grass if they can. And then basically the trail of treats leads up to them. So at first it's every 12 inches, then it comes to every 2 feet, then every 3 feet. And then when you get close to the person, I go back to once every 12 inches because that's when he's likely to be more reactive. So we want him to really just be paying attention to what's on the ground as opposed to the person. Another thing that I use, if the person wants to sit on the curb, what I do is I use this on the concrete. When we get to the curb, I actually, and this would be something you'd have to give them a little more forethought, I use shredded cheese in the grass. So I make a trail in the grass because that promotes sniffing. And that's what we want him to do, is we don't want him to meet by sight. We want him to meet by sniffing. And he's getting all these grass bits and he's preoccupied and getting, and while this is going on, the person is not saying a word to them. They're not looking to him. And they should be actually in this sort of position, actually on this side, but we want him approaching from the back and to the side. So then he's probably going to come and sniff them and all sorts of fun stuff. And if they have a treat or two, they can hold their hand out like here, let him have the treat, and then kind of shift a little bit and then hold another treat out to the side while, again, they're looking forward. And then you give them another treat, and then they would stand up. Now, when they you proceed to standing up, because standing up could be considered to go into a aggressive or more adventurous potty posture. So if we precede it by giving him a treat, then we stand up. He's kind of chewing, especially maybe that's where you give him a big chunk of the Stevens, because that'll take him 5 or 10 bites, and that gives him a chance to get up. Then you guys walk maybe 3 houses down on the street, and you're letting him sniff and do whatever. But we like to have him kind of have a pleasant association with this person. And then when you get somewhere, if you're comfortable, you can hand them his leash. And I would just use a regular 6-foot leash for this. You don't have to use the really long one that we showed you in the training video. And then the idea is somewhere along the walk, preferably on the way before you turn around, you hand your friend the leash. The leash, like I talked about in the other video, kind of helps some dogs kind of give up control. So that way he comes back in and your friend is the one holding the leash. Make sure you're going through the doors, that the friend comes through first and he comes through after. Once you come back inside, I would play a little bit of that focus game that I showed you. I would have one of you guys do it first. Do it about 3 or 4 in a row to warm him up. And so maybe have you doing it right here with him, and then hand them the treats, and he sees it. He'll run right over, then sits down, and now you promote. He has a little eye contact dominant issues, and the way that I teach the focus is different than the way dog trainers do, and it can reduce his stress levels. And also it promotes him looking at people that he doesn't know in the face and having something good happen. So instead of him being reactive to that, that might be something he actually looks forward to. All right, we talked about exercise. The Guardians do a good job of exercising him. If he wants to pull out his longboards and do some dog skiing, I think that would be a lot of fun, but it would be great for him. If you want to do that, make sure you let me know. There's a special type of harness that we have them wear that dissipates the weight a little bit better. And I'd also, for exercise, always check out with your vet. He's a young dog. I don't think he has any issues, but some dogs have repetitive injury potential, and we always want to make sure we're doing no harm. So I'm a head doctor, not a body doctor. So check with your vet to make sure they're okay with it. And if you do want to train him how to do that, again, I do that walking first, having the dog train dragging a chain. So it simulates the weight that he's going to be carrying for you. So come up with a command that means to walk, a command that means to run, a command that means right and left, and that could be pretty obvious, and then a command that means stop. So you're kind of jogging with him for 20 paces, and then you say stop, and you stop, and then he stops, and you give him a treat. And then maybe you just start walking for 10 paces, and you say walking as you're doing it. Just say walking once, walk about 10 paces, and then give him, and then while you're still walking, give him another treat and say walking. So you're kind of putting these things in context so he understands. And if you are dog skiing with it and you have the bungee, it's a long cord, and you get to where there's a lot of people, there's a dog in a yard or something like that, pull the leash back, and you're not pulling him back, you're pulling yourself closer to him, and then you can have him pulling you, going good speed while he's right next to you. He doesn't have to be in front of you. And if you're going to come up to a hairy situation with a lot of people, you want to have less leash so he's less likelihood to get tangled up in something. And if you do, because I had one dog that blew out his knee, if he gets tangled up in the leash, stop immediately. Usually I can run with it a little while. I thought I was fine, and then he got tangled and flipped, and it took him like 3 months to get it back. I just don't want you to have to deal with that. Okay, but again, make sure your vet is okay with that and use the right equipment. You can use the laser a little bit. Remember, there's a limited amount of usage for that. Another way you can use is scent games. Scent games can be as easy as putting him in the bedroom and hiding 5 treats out here and telling him to find and make sure they're the high values, the tricky trainer treats that I have. And so he's using his nose to find things. You can also do a snuffle mat. You can get those on Amazon or Chewy. And that's a great way for him to get some stimulation and burn some energy. Remember on walks to let him kind of sniff around. Now, if you want to work on the loose leash, let me know. We can set up in about a month and come back and do a session where just a 1-hour session. We just go to a park and we just work on that exclusively. Get him to the point where there's a lot more to it than I showed you, but he was already calmer, lunging less, and we want to get to the point where he doesn't lunge at all. Okay, so let me see. So that's exercise. We also talk. There's something else I was going to say on exercise. I mean, you could probably do like a little bit of shredded cheese out in the yard as well. But exercising before the people come over can be really great. So then, does he know how to catch?
He can sometimes, but not always.
So a lot of dogs, like we go like this, 1, 2, and the dog starts looking. Then we throw it on 3, and it hits the head, and then they just lift it up off the ground. So to teach a dog to catch, what I do is I just do 1 toss. Try to make it such a good toss. All you have to do is open his mouth and it falls in. Anytime it goes in his mouth, come up with a word, call it reception, catch, whatever the word you want to use, and have someone sitting right next to him. So it hits his nose and hits the floor. That person picks it up and hands it back to the thrower. He only gets it if he catches it out of the air. That creates the motivation. So that's another great, once he knows how to catch, that's another great game that he can do with guests. Now, don't ever give him a treat when he's barking at the person, so maybe you do a couple focuses, and then have the guest tell him to sit and throw a treat. So this allows the guest to interact with him at whatever distance Stanley feels comfortable with. Remember, anytime that he's reactive or he wants to move away, let him. If he's reacting, you move away. But if he wants to move away from people, let him unless it's not safe to do so. The more empowered he feels, the less he feels like he needs to react. Now, he seems to be a really smart dog, so one of the things I'd like you guys to do is go to YouTube, and I'd like you guys to set a goal and trade off. 1 week on Sunday or whatever day of the week is, I'm going to go to YouTube, I'm going to find Bang You're Dead. We're going to practice. So you want to get fed? Bang You're Dead. You want to pet? Bang You're Dead. You want to go out the door? Bang You're Dead. By the end of the week, you just look at him, he's like rolling, Bang You're Dead, flopping over. The next week, maybe you teach him roll over. Actually, I think roll over should be first, but teach those 2 in concert, one right after the other. So you're going to trade off. So 1 week you're teaching, and then we're practicing all week long. The next week you pick one and you're teaching it. At the end, if you guys each do 4 of those, at the end of 2 months, you now have 8 new ways to redirect his attention. He's going to have a boost of self-esteem because he's learned new tricks and commands. And who are the people who taught him those new tricks and commands? His guardians. So he's going to have more of affinity and more respect for them, really, as authority figures. So it's really beneficial. And sometimes people get in a habit of doing it, and then you're just teaching all sorts of stuff. Tricks that I would recommend, definitely teach him to stay. And make sure you're teaching the stay. If the other person's trying to do all 3 things at once, the stay should be taught in 3 Ds. First, for duration. Only when the dog can get to like 3 to 5 minutes, only then should you add distance. Most people try to do distance and duration at the same time. It makes it twice as hard. So eventually you want to get to the point where you can have distance and put him to stay right here, and you guys go in the bedroom and hang out there behind George Costanza, and he can't see you, but he knows you're here. So he is a little bit of a Velcro dog, so we need to help him practice being alone and being comfortable and calm while he's alone. So that's an easier version than when you actually leave. Let me see. And then you do distractions would be the third one. So teaching that would be great. You guys really seem to like the whole idea of putting the toys away. So put the toy, there's another video. You can also teach them to wipe their feet. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But try to make an assortment of, and you can put it on your knee too if that's more comfortable,
that's fine.
of tricks as well as commands. So you want stuff that's fun as well, and like teach them to do a circle or something like that. The kennel is right here. He has some guard dog tendencies, and the door is right there. So I would recommend that you move the kennel onto this side of the couch and move this stuff over here. So he's a little bit further away from the door. Also, kind of discourage him hanging out there. Like if he's sitting at the door and he's just kind of sunbathing, that's okay. If he's sitting at the door, then he's on duty. That we wouldn't allow. Either close the door or make him come away from it. And you could create a boundary around the door the way I showed you in the kitchen. Some people put painter's tape down so he knows exactly where. There's a box around the door. You're not allowed to go into that box. The closer he is to things, the more intense they're going to be. So decreasing the proximity will help him to actually not be so intense towards things. Like I said, always increase distance when he's reactive. Does he bark like when people come to the door or knock at the door? You probably don't have a lot of people knocking at the door.
New people, yes, not.
So I think that greeting that I talked about earlier will mitigate a lot of that because he meets them, he gets to go for a walk, it's all these positive things happen, and then by the time they come inside, they're still holding a leash and they practice a little focus. I think by the time you get over focus, he's going to be like, they're my best friends. Okay, so we also talked about enforcing rules. He's allowed on this side of the couch, but on this side, which is confusing for dogs. You can train a dog to only stay on this side of the couch. It sounds like he probably does, but the issue is not which side of the couch is, it's the height. The higher a dog sits, the more rank or social status they have. So sitting here says that we are peers, and if we're peers, then listening to us is optional. Lack of rules means we're peers. Listening is optional. So I'd recommend no furniture for at least 90 days or as long as the problem is still going on. All my clients say, but you said 90 days. I'm like, minimum. So if he's still reactive, then he doesn't give that privilege. And eventually, he would get this privilege with an invitation. When it's been about a month and he's no longer reactive and his overall behavior is good, then if you'd like to give him a one-time pass, you decide. But it's for good behavior. He invites up here and he starts to climb up here or starts barking, He has to have to get down. Or he gets up here with permission, gets down to do something. He's not allowed back up here with another invitation. That way it's your couch, you're just sharing it with him. You can get those X mats. They're about 11 to 13 bucks a piece, so you probably have to get 3 of them. But it's just a lot easier and have to police it. Remember to use the technique that I showed you for the dog bed. First we toss, then when he's not paying attention we leave, and then we lure him onto a sit or a lay down on the dog bed, pop the treat in his mouth and say the word. Those are the 3 ways to entice him to go there. But after a while he should go there on his own. I don't know if you guys have the ability to have, like, I'm not snooping, but maybe have somewhere where you can have a Tupperware, somewhere where you can have treats handy. So he goes there, you can give him the treat, or you just say the command word when he goes there. Or you can get up and pet him, and that's fine as well. But I would just probably practice, come over here with like 10 treats, toss like 9 of them, and then the 10th one, wait for him to go there on his own, and then throw it. So the 3 ways: first toss, leave, or lure, and then after a while, as we drop the treats, when he goes there, he's like, now just go here and it rains treats. This is an awesome place to go. For the kennel, he likes the kennel now. Every once in a while, leave a treat in there. Come up with a funny command word. You can do the same technique for this as you do for here. And I had one guy called it jail. Well, that's a really negative term. So call it palace, mansion, Hawaii, or something that's going to make people laugh. Remember to come up with those fun command words. And one of the things I'd like you guys to do is come up with a list of the official command words. I didn't go through this in video, I thought I would, but most of us use 10 different versions of each command word. Come here, come here, over here boy, dog's name, dog's nickname, whistle, tap my thigh. Now I've got to listen for 10 different things out of the 11,000 words that everybody says, humans say every day, but there's, let's say I know 10 commands, that means I have to listen for 100 words. That's really hard. So come up with a list of the official command words, put them on your dry erase board or your fridge or whatever it is, and then if somebody says, come here, you're like, vocabulary, like, thank you, come. So it just helps us consolidate and get a little bit better. Again, try to come up with fun command words for all. Like for my dog, one of the things I taught my dog to do was crawl on the ground. Now at first I called it worm, but worm wasn't very funny. So I changed it to sneaky. So I say sneaky, my dog drops down and crawls, and everybody does exactly that. And they laugh, and that makes the dog want to do that. I used to do high five. I don't recommend that one for a while, but I call it dabs. And so coming up with a slang and fun stuff, that's the basically passive training. So every time he goes to the dog bed, we say the word. Every time he takes a drink of water, I call it happy hour. Every time my dogs eat, I call it grub, chow, feast, or lasagna. So come up with a word, and every time he takes his first bite of food, when it's their standard bowl, say the word. Maybe you have a special word for the snuffle mat. Maybe call it something that's related to Sesame Street or something like that. So again, he has a different word for each one of those things. Also, putting things in context. Remember to go in the kitchen, throw a treat outside beyond the boundary. When he licks up, say out. Then do it in the middle, and then on this side. And then you do it over here. If you eat here, I'd say the rule is he's not allowed to be on this carpet when you're eating. And so the dog bed should be moved away when you're doing that. And again, but before you do that, throw a treat here, throw a treat there. And so we're putting in context, moving away is rewardable. And then you're going to use the same techniques with those escalating consequences that I showed you. And eventually, I mean, he's a smart dog. I had to do it once, and he did it for all 3 of us. Didn't go back in the kitchen, even though there was treats all over the floor. The guardian said, which I love, no way he will ever do that. And I love it when because he did a great job. So, all right, so other rules: sit at the door. Don't ask him multiple times, and I use that as a watchword as well. So say repeat or rerun if somebody's using the same word. Getting back to, well, I guess I'll talk about passive trade in a minute. So for the, what was I just saying?
Sitting at the door.
Sitting at the door. So go to the door, tell him to sit one time. If he doesn't sit, within 3 seconds, walk away, sit down, wait for a minute, ask your H device, and or I guess, is it H or
Google.
G?
Yeah.
And quiet. And then after 1 minute, go back there and tell him again to SIT. If he doesn't, within 3 seconds, walk away. This time for 2 minutes, next time for 4 minutes. Just make sure you're seated down the double length of time. Eventually, when you go over there, as soon as he sits, open that door as fast as you can. And so after a while, he'll just go sit at the door as his way of saying, I'd like to go outside, please. So not being allowed around you guys when you're eating, not in the kitchen, when you're eating in the kitchen or preparing, and cooking. Remember, do a warm-up. So go in there, microwave the bacon like I talked about, and kind of every time he comes across that line, you make the hissing sound or march towards him. Eventually, he'll just be like, they're in the kitchen, I'm just leaving them alone. And that's distance also helps him practice a little self-control and also practicing not being so clingy and needy. Okay, so those are examples of rules, but look, there's other rules that you probably can do. Like one of them I forgot, make sure you're eating something before you feed him, just something in 5 or more bites, and then he gets to eat. If he ever does leave food in his bowl, pick up the bowl, dump it back in the bag, and put the empty bowl back down. You eat the food when we give you the food, and otherwise, when you leave it, it's not going to stay around, because in the wild, whoever's the next behind him in rank is going to come and eat that portion. There's no leftovers. So we want to make sure that we're kind of channeling what is normal for him. Remember, for dogs, 90% of the time in the wild was spent looking for food. So having them see you eat in front of it and you controlling the food goes a long ways towards helping. Let me see. Passive training is basically waiting for the dog to organically offer you the behavior that you want. Every time he comes to you in the house, pet him and say, come. Every time he sits down, pet him and say, sit. Every time he stretches, if you want to do it, pet him and say, stretch. Drinks wine, maybe call it Heineken or whatever your favorite alcoholic beverage is. Takes his food, call it sushi or whatever your favorite meal is. Come up with a funny new name for the dog for this, and I would come up with a different name for your dog, the place that he sleeps in your bedroom, and so that way he has, he could say Slumberland or whatever it is, and he knows where to go. He licks you, call it kisses. If I say kisses, my dog comes and licks me. If I want him to kiss me right here, I say love. Love means lick me right specifically here. So you can be that specific if you want. Okay, so let me see. We also went over petting with a purpose. Petting with a purpose is if he comes up and he's very nudgy. So he invades people's personal space, he paws at them or nudges for attention. He just says, I want some attention, but he's telling us what to do. If we do what he wants, then that's validating that. So I use, so basically when he tells me what to do, I give him a counter word. Tell him to sit. If he's already sitting, I ask him to sit over here or I ask him to lay down. He has to do something to change his state if he's the one demanding attention. And then when you do pet him under his chin, say the word, only the command word. Remember, they hear the first word you say. So he comes over, you say, good sit. You're putting the word that is important in the least important position. So say just that. And to come up with a word, they call it Scrabble. So Scrabble means you use too many words. And you say, thank you, come, or whatever the word is. So I also use paycheck for if I suspect someone's petting without a purpose. And even if I did it right, if I'm petting and somebody comes and says paycheck, even if I did it right, I stop petting, say sit again. If he sits, I pet him on his chin, say, actually, I asked him to sit, and when you open the door, he stood up, I continue petting him, but thank you, because I do forget. And remember, if you tell him to sit and he doesn't sit, show him I got other things to do. Enjoy your day of light or whatever it is. So the idea is we're going to play a little hard to get. So from now on, what's going to happen is he's going to come and sit in front of you to prepay for that attention. When he does, make sure you do recognize and reward that. Now, the passive training I talked about earlier, I have a watchword for that one as well. What we're doing is really celebrating the things that he does that we like. So I use that as my watchword. So if I'm sitting there watching TV and somebody says celebrate, or look at the dog, he's standing there, I would assume that he came. That's what I missed. So I just pet him and say, come. If he's sitting, that's pretty obvious. Laying down, pretty obvious. Name all your individual toys. But that way you can kind of remind each other. And after a while, I don't even think about it. Just when the dog comes over, I just use my hand motion, put him in sit, pet him and say sit, and continue watching the game or doing whatever I was doing. So the more you get in a habit of doing those sort of things, after a while, you won't even think about it. You'll do it automatically. But every time you do it, it becomes this micro dog training session that increases his respect for you, boosts his confidence, and helps him practice these behaviors that we like. Remember, most of us train our dogs to misbehave because when they bark at the door, we tell them to shush. If he's barking, we yell at him, he thinks, cool, now we're both barking. So instead, what we want to do is distract him, maybe have him come over and do some focus exercises, or play some scent games, or feed him a snack out of a snuffle mat. Give him something better to do. We don't want him to practice doing that, or just close the door. The more he practices being guard dog, the more he's going to continue to do so. Let me see, I'm trying to think what else. We went over the escalating consequences. If you forget what those are, message me. I don't share those in video. You have to hire me for that sort of thing. I didn't ask you about toys. How many toys does he have?
A lot.
A lot. He chews through everything.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I just went through the guy earlier today. Said my dog chews. It's like $20. It's gone in 5 seconds. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to Kong toys, black Kong toys are stronger than red. Mm-hmm. I would recommend a couple of antlers, a water buffalo horn or two, which will probably outlast the dog. Now, it will smell funky for about a week or two, but after a week or two, it won't smell anymore. I remembered something I forgot earlier. Get a bag of the Bully Bites. The ones I get are from the Natural Dog Company. They look like this. And it's I'm emphasizing it not because I like Ohio State, but I'm a Nebraska fan. There's a company called Natural Dog Company that makes ointments for their nose and for their paws. They don't make these Bully Bites. Oh. These are odor-free. They're more expensive. Your nose will tell you why they're more expensive. So I would recommend getting some of these. So every time when he comes over, like I did, and I give him a little one, you're gonna give him, the guest is gonna give him a big one. And I would also give the guest this, full of treats. I'm notoriously single to the point where people are like, it's okay to be gay, David. I'm like, I'm unsuccessful or too busy to date is different. But because I am, I'm kind of seeing someone now, but when I was single, I would, brush my teeth. I washed my hair. I dressed appropriately. So if I met a girl who's crazy enough to let me take her out, I at least am ready to do it. This gives the guest the same sort of appearance. Oh, that guy could be treating me at any moment. Now you have to be careful. If we don't incorporate rules and structure, he might just go demand bark at them. And if he demands barks at you, we just ignore, look at him, watch TV, and don't even blink or look in his direction. If it works, he'll continue doing it. You got a little bit of a static electricity shock there, didn't you, buddy? Also, I want you to get in a habit of learning to read his body language. So you see his tail, how fast it's going, which direction it's going, where it's orientated. Those are all important factors. So when he's at home and he's relaxed and it's just you guys and you know he likes something, what is his tail position? Is it like this? We want to get his neutral tail position. How are his ears? He flips his ears back a lot. And just like us, we have different expressions. Some people have, RBF? You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Resting
yes.
B face. Some people aren't aware of the fact they're doing those sort of things. So some of these things he might not be aware of the fact that he's doing. But if every time a guest comes over, I meet him outside, I get a trail of treats, then we go for a walk, and we come back inside, then we play the focus game, and then I get a bully stick, I mean, it just can't get any better than that. And then the person has the treats at any point, he could be treating me some more. So we play fetch if he can't get close enough to, or if he barks, then we do a focus, just play fetch or catch. And it might take a couple of visits before he's comfortable enough with somebody that he will let them pet. You know. Is that your way saying you want to get up on the couch? Yes. Always try to pet on underneath the head instead of on top of. You can pet him anywhere you want. You scratch his butt. Just don't reach over his head if all things are equal. Remember, if he's nervous and you pet him, you'll make him more nervous. And if he's nervous, lay your hand on him. Let him know I'm here with you. Sit. Oh, you got the reverse sneezes. Can I help with that? You don't like that? That was me leaning over him a little bit. You saw he got up and moved away. So if he does that with any guest, tell your guest, anytime he gets up and moves away, try to retract right away. He's doing what's called a reverse sneeze, and if he does that, you can actually put pressure right underneath where his rib cage is, and it usually will stop that. It's a very normal behavior. It's nothing, there's nothing wrong with just like us sneezing. Is there anything else we want to go over?
I think you got it all.
It's like a
very thorough. Yeah, it's like it was for a liam. Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'm going to do this right up. Now, if I don't hear from you guys, I assume that means everything's going great. So what I want you guys to do, it'll be a day or two before you get this, but please message me anytime you have questions. I'll give you my phone number, or we get done with this privately. Make sure you message me. I don't care if it's 7 years after I've worked with you. If I don't hear from you, I can't help.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's a problem, come here, buddy. There we go. Come. I want you to let me know, and especially, like I said, everybody, you got a lot of people giving you some weird dog advice. I actually am a dog behavior expert, so if somebody tells you something ridiculous, come to me and I'd be happy to help you out. And like I said, if you guys want to set up something up to work on that loose leash walking, it's pretty awesome to be able to tuck the leash in your back pocket and walk down the street. And the great thing about that technique that I show you, it also works great for dogs that are reactive and lunge towards other dogs aggressively. And it just teaches that, because what they're very front-facing. I'm going to lunge at you and try to make you move away. Well, what I'm saying is I don't like this distance. I want more distance between us. And dogs, I'm front-facing. That's all I think about is moving forward. You're going to help the dog learn, oh, if I don't want the dog to be close, I can turn and walk away from them. But it takes a little practice, so let me know if you want to set that up. I'd like you guys to work on this stuff for at least a month. And maybe if we do set that up, maybe set it up for December sometime, or whenever you want. And then we can go through. I'd say wait until the nice time of the year, but it's Southern California, it's always nice here. Sorry to everybody in the rest of the country. All right, well, this handsome fella is Stanley. I swear he's got some black mouth cur in him. And this is Stanley's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.